What is going on, guys? I'm Consumer Tech Review, and today we're going to be checking out the Epomaker RT100. If at any point during the video you want to check out this exact same keyboard, there will be links below where you can check it out, but let's jump right into it. Starting off with what's in the box. Now, after getting the box open, you first have this nice thick dust cover. You have the keyboard itself wrapped in plastic, the manual and paperwork, a keycap and switch puller, or a keycap / switch puller. It's a single one. A high quality thick rubber coated cable with custom metal ends. The cable is quite nice. We've never done this in what's in the box section, but we'll do some B-roll here. It's very nice. It's a very thick cable. It's rubber coated, but it's super loose. This cable is like, obviously it's not a coiled cable, but it's really nice. Like, I would actually use this cable rather than getting a custom cable. It's nice. All right, then lastly in the box is one of the coolest parts of this keyboard is this little mini TV wrapped in foam and then wrapped in plastic. It's a little mini TV that plugs into it. We'll get into it. It's very cool. All right, before we get much more into it, disclaimer, this is sponsored by Epomaker, but they do not tell me what to say. They don't tell me what I must include or anything like that. All they are paying for is a spot for me to review it. But this does not mean it's going to be a positive, negative, or neutral review. They have no control over my opinions over this. So this is just my review of their keyboard. And thank you to Epomaker because they've been sponsoring this channel a lot recently with reviews. So with that, let's jump into the form factor and build quality. Firstly, this is an 1800 form factor, which is really nice. It's essentially if you took a full size keyboard with the number pad and then you took a TKL, but instead of doing a TKL with your typical layout, you basically keep the arrow keys, but then put the number pad up there. This is probably my favorite form factor if I'm using this in like, well, a more utility environment. If I'm just going for the looks, I probably prefer a split design 65%. But if overall, if I'm gonna have one keyboard, it's going to be an 1800. All right, now this is a two-piece plastic shell. And the first thing you'll notice when you get this out of the box and look at it is like, this is not your average plastic case. There's a lot of different edges and designs. It almost looks a little bit Mediterranean, like kind of like archways. That's kind of the vibe I get here. I really, really like it. You also have slight dip downs for where the case kind of moves into the keys itself. There's a lot of little small touches in the plastic design that's like, wow, this is more than just your average plastic case. On top of that, the plastic is much thicker here, but it is a softer plastic. So when you do flex it, there is flex, absolutely. But I think this is a good thing because the softer plastics obviously will absorb more vibrations than other keyboards. I've seen this a lot. Very stiff plastics have a bad sound profile, and the softer plastics actually have a better sound profile a lot of times. Although sound profile is completely subjective to what you like, but I personally really like that. Now, a huge pro here is this has a polycarbonate plate, which is great. This also has dual stage risers, which we kind of expect from Epomaker at this point. Now, this does have a knob. Now, the cool thing about this knob is that the top of it has some graphics for like your play, pause, and then turning up and down the volume. But that middle section actually stays stationary when you turn the knob, and only the edges of the knob turn, which is, it kind of reminds me of like a Rolls-Royce, how the Rolls-Royce RR logo on the wheels stays stationary when it drives down the road. So it's kind of cool like that, but I don't particularly like the graphics on the top of it. I think the play, pause, and the volume up and down kind of remove the artisticness to it. However, the flip side of this is that the actual clicking, like the tactility of the knob is very, very satisfying. You want to use the knob a lot because it feels so good. However, there is a little bit of wobble here. But with that, let's move on to mounting style and dampening because this is where it gets very, very good. Now for the mounting style, this is gasket mounted. This is great not only for modding because there's no standoffs to have to mod around for case dampening and things of that nature, but well, the sound profile as well as the feeling of the board is heightened here. Obviously totally based on personal preference, but the majority of people I think prefer gasket mounted overall. Now the interesting thing here is they have gaskets on the bottom piece of the case, but on the top piece of the case, there are no gaskets. So that's a potential possibility for maybe modding this. So it's not sandwiched between two things of pour-on foam. It's just pour-on foam, plate, case on the top. So there could definitely be some upgrading and modding there. So that is kind of an interesting design choice. However, it doesn't seem to affect the sound quality badly because this thing sounds quite good. Now in the case itself, there is thick foam. Like it's your traditional like gray foam, highly sparkly. Both Haley and I were like, wow, that is quite sparkly when we got it out of the box, but it is thicker than your traditional foam. Then between the plate and the PCB, you have pour-on foam, which is a more expensive foam, and you have a switch dampener. Very, very nice to have. That's a lot of high quality dampening here. Sound profile, again, reflects that. Now, as far as daughter boards, this has them. Both daughter boards are connected to the top half of the case rather than the bottom half, which is kind of interesting. So that's kind of more similar to like a Keycron board, which I think a lot of them do that. But these are connected with ribbon cables to daughter boards on the left and the right side of the case, and those are for the USB Type-C on the right hand, as well as the knob, which is soldered onto a daughter board. So the knob is not actually connected to the main PCB. Then on the left side, you have another daughter board for the, well, other USB Type-C that allows you to put accessories onto this. We'll talk about it, it's very cool. But before we move into that, let's talk the keycaps. These are MDA profile, they're die-sub PBT, so all that is very good, and I really like MDA, but the quality of the keycaps, how are they? Firstly, the thickness is great. Very thick here, pretty much just as thick as you're ever gonna get on a keycap. And this adds to the sound profile, I think, hugely, which is quite exquisite. I know I'm gonna continue to say that. Now, this is not gonna be exquisite for everyone, but for me personally, I really like the sound profile of this one. As far as printing inconsistencies with placement, there are inconsistencies for sure, but they're very, very slight. And unless you're an enthusiast or looking extremely closely, you're probably not going to notice them. So not a whole lot of inconsistencies there. Now, crispness of text was pretty good, but there's definitely some fuzziness around the edges. Don't expect GMK quality or even mid-grade quality. I would say these are just slightly down from mid-grade, although it has great thickness and they are die-sub PBT, which does change the sound. So I really like these. I think it's a good choice, but again, slight amount of fuzziness around the edges of the text. I do like the colorway. It has nice muted hues, which I think goes very well with the case overall. All things considered, I think this is a good choice, and I do like the MDA profile. Switches, Hotswappability, and hot swap direction. Let's talk about it. Firstly, you have a lot of great switch options here, which is really what totally finishes this board and does make me have an overall positive feeling towards this board. Okay, switch options are Epomaker's Silent Sea Salts, Epomaker's Flamingo switches, and the Epomaker Budget Guard switches, and then you also have the choice between the Gateron Pro Yellows. That's a lot of great switch options there. I have the Silent Sea Salts, but I have used the Epomaker Flamingos and the Budget Guard switches, as well as obviously Gateron Pro Yellows. So my picks would probably be personal picks would be between the Budget Guard and the Flamingos. If you're in an office situation and you need a silent switch, well, the Epomaker Silent Sea Salts are nice and smooth. They do come factory lubed, and they are very, very muted. So you can absolutely use this in an office environment, but I prefer a non-silent switch if I'm gonna be using this daily. If I wanted a linear, I would go the Flamingos, but the tactiles, which are the Budget Guard, would absolutely be my pick. I did swap them into this board to check sound profile, and we will do a sound test later in the video, and they sounded absolutely amazingly good. And obviously that tactile, I've talked about it before, it's quite nice. It's a heavy tactile bump, it's great. If you're getting this for a gaming keyboard, then go with the Pro Yellows, because that will have a much higher or a much quicker switch. It will actuate quicker, which definitely makes a difference in gameplay. Now the Sea Salts, the Flamingos, and the Budget Guard are all 5-pin switches, which is awesome. I don't know about the Gateron Pro Yellows because I think they come in both, so I don't know which ones they use. But for specifically the Epomaker switches, I know all of them come in 5-pin variants, which is awesome. Also, all the switches come factory lubed. I believe the Gateron Pro Yellows will also come factory lubed, but the basic point here is that all of the switches are very smooth, all of the switches are lubed. There's no bad options here. They're all great switches that I think most people will be happy with, except maybe the Budget Guards, just because they're such a heavy tactile. Some people may not like a tactile, but for the people that like tactiles, you're gonna really, really like it. As far as hot swappability, this is a hot swappable with 3 and 5-pin switches, and they are south-facing LEDs, which is nice. But let's talk stabilizers. Firstly, these are plate mounted and they are extremely tight in the plate, which is a really good thing. So how are they? Well, firstly, they come factory tuned, and if there is lube on the walls of the stabilizer housings, there's not a whole lot. The wires are greased, but again, very slightly greased. Now for the amount of tuning and the amount of grease that they have on these sound quite good, but they do have some ticks, like on the left shift and on the spacebar, mine did have ticking on it. That also does signal that with very, very light amounts of tuning, you could probably get these sounding extremely good. But from the factory, well, mine did have some ticking, so take with that what you will. If that's gonna bother you and you don't wanna go in and tune your stabilizers, it would be a fairly easy tune to fix that, well then you might wanna look elsewhere. But if you know that you're gonna mod your keyboard at least a little bit, this is not gonna be a big deal for you at all. So with that, let's talk about the typing sound and feel here. With the variant that I have, which is the Epomaker Sea Salt silent switches, it's a very muted sound. It does not sound bad at all. I think it actually sounds quite good, but you don't take full advantage of everything that's inside of this case with the silent switches. Now again, if you're in an office environment, this is gonna be great for you. This is what you're gonna want. But to take full advantage of the really great sound profile of this keyboard, you do wanna go for a normal traditional switch like the Flamingos, like the Gateron Pro Yellows, or the Budgerigar, which I think probably sounds the best on this keyboard. But with that, take a listen to both the silent sea salts on this keyboard, as well as swapped in Flamingos and Budgerigars. Take a listen. And that is how it sounds. You can see with the Flamingos and the Budgerigars, that sound really, really good. Really, really good. Due to all the dampening, the polycarbonate plate, the keycaps, it just adds into a very, very nice sound stock. I mean, you don't have to do anything to this to have it sound quite amazing out of the box. These are really just pre-built custom keyboards at this point. But we've been talking about that for a while now. All of these Epomaker keyboards are really just custom keyboards that are pre-built and come to you. I mean, they're custom switches, they're custom keycaps. I mean, really all of it is very custom. All right, but let's talk RGB and display. What is that? Firstly, the RGB is exactly what you'd expect here. Perky lighting, tons of modes, tons of static colors, tons of everything. Reactive modes, it's very vibrant, it's nice and bright, but again, not shine through keycaps, and this is south facing, so doesn't really matter too much. But now the most interesting thing about this keyboard, it comes with a little display that plugs in over on the left-hand side of the keyboard. Now, when you get this, there's a little cover plate that says USB 2.4 gigahertz USB dongle. You pop that little cover plate off, and there you got your little dongle inside of that compartment. Once you take that dongle out, it allows access to an additional USB Type-C on the left-hand side, which then you can take that little display, it's kind of like a retro TV, and plug it in there, which then gives you data and a customizable display, which is very cool. The data includes the time, the date, the battery left on the keyboard, which is one of my personal favorites. That's really, really nice to have. Your connection mode, where it shows if it's connected at all. And it even shows things like your CPU temperature, which you can only see when it's plugged in with the USB Type-C cable, not with 2.4 gigahertz USB dongle. It's not gonna work wirelessly, but if you have it plugged in, you can even see your CPU temperature, which is pretty cool. Now, in the software itself, you can create and upload macros, change the RGB lighting and colors and effects, change the sleep settings for all the different connections. You can upload photos and GIFs to be displayed on the screen, or you can even create your own sketches to be displayed on that screen. Although you cannot change the specific layout of the screen, which is unfortunate, so it always has that same kind of time up here and this there and your GIF here. That stuff would be really cool to change if you could just completely customize the screen. I think that would add another level. I guess that's something possible that Epomaker could update through software. And if they could do that, that would be absolutely awesome, because some people may not want all of that data, just to have a little GIF or a little image there on their keyboard, or maybe just showing the battery with a GIF. That would be kind of cool and clean. So a lot of upside here, and the price doesn't reflect the upgrade of a screen. So it's kind of just one of those things where it's not free, right? You're definitely paying for it, but the price doesn't reflect other keyboards in the same segment, similarly spec'd, that don't have screens. So there's no price difference there, which is kind of cool. Now for battery and connection, because this is also a wireless keyboard, this has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. So if you don't have RGB lighting on, and I'm not sure what the screen draws, but probably not very much at all, this is gonna last a very, very long time. This has Bluetooth 5.0, the connection up to 3 different devices simultaneously, and obviously it has that 2.4 gigahertz USB dongle if you wanna do gaming on your keyboard. That's what I would probably prefer over Bluetooth. There's also a switch at the top right corner in addition to the on and off switch that allows you to switch between Windows, Mac, which is also Android ISO, because you can also control it with an iPad. You can hook it up to an iPad or whatever you want with a Bluetooth connection. And then obviously you have the USB Type-C on the top right for connection that can either be used as a charge port or as a connection port. All right, but now moving on to the last and probably the most important section of the entire video, price and value. Now, firstly, this retails from $109.99 up to $119.99. That varies based on switch options. Now for the price, you're getting a ton of high quality dampening, a totally custom plastic case, a truly great sound profile out of the box in stock form, some stabilizers that do need some tuning to be perfect, thick PBT keycaps that look pretty good, and great switch options that come pre-lubed. Now this colorway is not going to be for everyone, and the screen is cool, but some people may not even like it. So is this keyboard for everyone, and can I just absolutely recommend it to everyone? It's like, no. But what I can do is if you like everything you see, I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point, yeah, it's a great keyboard. In this space and time, there are so many great keyboards at this price point. I love this one for the sound profile. However, again, a lot of these things you do have to become nitpicky with. Do you want this and do you want that? If I was gonna buy a keyboard in this price range, I would probably go with Epomaker because currently their budget regard switch that comes factory lube is stupid smooth and it's really, really nice tactile for the price. It's probably my favorite. I've said that before. And so that's probably the one reason I would probably buy Epomaker over everyone else at this $100 price range for a pre-built custom. Now, whether I would go for this one over their, what was it, the SA profile one? I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but I think I like the colorway of that one better. But the sound profile of this one, I think this one is a little bit better for me personally. This one's quite good. So there's a lot of upside and there's also a lot of options which make it very difficult. But as far as value and is it worth it? Yeah, it's definitely worth it. You can't really go wrong with south-facing LEDs, a ton of impressive dampening, great case design overall, which is the thing that really brings it home. Stabilizers are good, but they do need some tuning. Again, if you wanna check it out, links below. Thanks to Epomaker for sponsoring this video. But this was Consumer Tech Review, and I'll see you guys in the next video.